All right, so I think we can just get going with doing the screen share here. We're about 4 after. I think that maybe if everyone could mute while I go through the material, but feel free to unmute and ask questions as I go along. I'll try to pause, giving people time to ask questions. This is the question and answer session for the North Central Climate Science Center's 2015-16 solicitation. This is the second of 2. We did one on Tuesday, and this one. If anyone knows others that weren't able to make any of the first 2, these question and answer sessions, the door is open for people to call or write to me, and they will be recorded and posted on the website, which I'll show later in the meeting, the revamp climate.colostate.edu page. So let me just dig in here with kind of an overview of what we're after with the North Central Climate Science Center, and then I'll go to the website that tries to, or the National Climate Change Wildlife Science Center's website, walk people through that a little bit, just the pragmatics of getting to the solicitation announcement, walk through that large file announcement that NCLISC has posted, the National Climate Change Wildlife Science Center has posted, and then some of the practicalities of navigating the website and using our request for proposal manager, or RFP manager as it's called. The North Central Climate Science Center University Consortium is shown on this slide. You see the 9 institutions that are part of the North Central, which is worth highlighting because the eligibility is maybe an important thing to put out there first, is that the PI must be from either a University Consortium member or a USGS center. And proposals that have one of both are reviewed favorably, but not necessary. Any other institution can serve as a co-investigator and a subcontract on these proposals, but they have to be led by University Consortium members or USGS members, and those can be any USGS center, not limited to the footprint of the North Central domain. If people applied to or read last year's solicitation, you'll see that this year's, at least for the North Central, is very similar. We use as our guidance the National Research Council's report on informing decisions in a changing climate. In particular, the first 4 items are really related to the solicitation. Items 5 and 6, we believe the North Central and the National Climate Change Wildlife Center is trying to live into those suggestions, but through the solicitation and asking for people to begin with the end user in mind, that we're looking to focus on the process, not a large list of products, but helping us to establish the process, and then linking the producers and the users, and then multidisciplinary and organizational, kind of crossing across those boundaries. We're still after that. What we're asking for this round, some of the details then in graphics that are not in the solicitation, but were in last year's solicitation or have been sent around. This is in our 5-year plan, or publicly available. This is in our 5-year plan that shows the that our. Could everyone mute? Who's not? Okay. Does anyone else hear the music?
Okay. I just lost the music.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for whoever muted there. The foundational science areas shown on this diagram stand. We have climate drivers, the impact of that climate and climate change on fish and wildlife, resources, and then adaptation, mitigation, and the management ability to react to that climate and its impacts. Those maintain. What we're also trying to do with the science delivery is establish a resource for vulnerability assessment, adaptation, and mitigation planning, or revamp. And we realized in the first couple of years we actually have to kind of figure out what this is and what this looks like. And in essence, we are trying to solicit clients, basically, to use revamp. That is, get people coming to us through the solicitation of management-focused project that could help us to integrate across the foundational science areas and establish what revamp would look like as we build this. And this is, again, kind of focusing on that process over a particular product and what we're asking for. The other process is this from Scanning Conservation Horizons, kind of conservation strategy. There's others out there. There's Molly Cross has the ACT or ACT framework. There's IPCC. There's other frameworks out there. But what we're asking for is to have the proposal team at least be explicit about what framework they're using and to try to get through kind of an iteration of it where the conservation target is identified, sensitivity to climate change is there, but we also consider the identifying or working with those users to identify land management options and then observe and monitor the implementation of that management action. So this is from the Scanning Conservation Horizons document, but like I said, other frameworks are allowable, but that we ask people to have a process of going through strategic conservation framework. And what we then hope to accomplish is that, kind of the top part is having someone walk through this process of a conservation framework is then sort of sitting on top of the revamp concept that we're trying to do with science delivery and then integrating across our foundational science area where these things that you're sitting upon are the resources and capacity being built in the CSC. This is listed explicitly word for word in the solicitation that's out, but I thought I would call it to folks' attention that we do have some examples. It's not limited to this, but it does give you kind of the management and decision-specific nature of what we're asking for. I won't go through these, but these are examples that do show up in the solicitation. Just to mention the North Central Climate Science Center staff, in case you know any of these people and you're interested in kind of checking with them, they're fairly familiar with what we're doing. The USGS folks, kind of in the top half of this slide, will not be submitting to the solicitation and kind of are available for questions. The folks on the bottom are CSU and can be included in the solicitation. They won't be, in a proposal, they won't be on the review panel, but again, they're working here at the center and have strong knowledge of what we're trying to do and what we're building. So all these folks, and I believe Geneva is on the phone, are working kind of closely in our resources, if you know these people, to check in with them and kind of if you have questions or anything you're considering for proposing, you can check in with any of these folks. Just to note, though, that John Gross is not USGS. He's with the National Park Service. He sits at the North Central Climate Science Center once a week, tries to maintain a connection with the National Park Service's Climate Change Response Program. So anyone related to NPS work, if you know John, he was with the Inventory Monitoring Program. It's another resource that kind of understands pretty well what we're doing. So that's old slide, sorry, from the previous round. But so that was an overview, kind of what we're after. I can pause now before I go into kind of the getting to the actual solicitation. If there's any questions on that, what I just showed. Okay, well, what I might do now is just kind of, if you just simply search NC CSC, NCWISC, or the National Climate Change Wildlife Science Center, you get the first link that pops up, or the obvious link, is where you want to go, which lists then the funding opportunities that is kind of on their news item, with the deadline being June 17th. You go to this link, and this is kind of the main page for the solicitations across all climate science centers. And I would note this year there is a national call from the national office for more cross-CSC work on drought and drought impacts on fish and wildlife. This page kind of is a one-stop shop for everything related to the solicitation, and it gives you the funding opportunity guidance. And if you click on that, it goes to the actual PDF file that I recommend everyone become familiar with if you're thinking of proposing. It also gives general information about the climate centers, This is not particular to the solicitation, but again, just general information, as well as general information about data policies and guidance. And again, this is not specific to this solicitation, but just general information, but helpful to be aware of that, I believe, if you're thinking of submitting. This gives the who may submit, the eligibility that I reviewed earlier as far as institute-hosted consortium members or the USGS centers. The deadlines, the main deadline I guess to be aware of is June 17th, coming up to the statement of interest. And then the link to the individual CSC. Before I move on to that, I'm going to go to the funding opportunity, the PDF file that's linked there. I'm moving to this one, which is a little bit, I've marked up a little bit. If you see, it is 73 pages, which is a little bit daunting, but I would call your attention to the fact that the first, I believe, 10 or so pages are just overview material that's specific for all proposers. So this is general information with instructions related to that. I'm just going to page down. I don't need to kind of watch this too closely. Stop a little bit along the way. There's the due dates are listed there. Would call your attention to something that's a little bit, it might not be clear for people reading this, is that they give the review criteria is given in the preliminary material, the first 10 pages, and then some more details on the weighting of that review criteria is given for each CSC. So they're fairly tightly coupled and crossed between the general overview in the first couple of pages and then the specifics to a climate science center. But just to call your attention, you'll see that both, and it's fairly redundant, but the climate science centers were able to put the specific weights on each of those criteria. So the criteria is outlined in this first part, but then the weights, those are defined for each climate science center. So going through those criteria. It's also worth mentioning that this is a two-stage proposal process. Those dates are for the statement of interest, and those are due June 17th. Those will be reviewed, and from a subset of those, we will select and invite full proposals that would be then submitted, I believe, sometime in the September timeframe. Go back to the deadline. October 10th being the full proposals. There is overhead in money going from the university in the consortium that it gets routed through CSU. That's just because of budgetary rules with the way the climate science centers were stood up. So, for example, money going to Montana State University has to go through CSU, and they will charge 33% on the first $25,000. So, for university consortium members, it's worth just noting that you would have kind of a $7,000 overhead hit that would come in, and only applies to the first year. Subsequent years, it would just get passed through. But that's just something for people to be aware of, and that we are asking for university, USGS centers, and consortium members to work with your sponsored program, your office of sponsored programs, or the financial administrative officer at your center, to make sure they review these proposals before they get submitted. It will probably be required for the next round of solicitations that the climate science centers offer. This year, it's not mandatory, but highly suggested in that they review the overhead. We had some across the CSCs last year, proposals that came in, and then by the time they actually got to be funded, the Office of Sponsored Programs or the administrative officer looked at it, and there were some changes with respect to overhead. So we just strongly encourage that you work with your financial people in what you propose. And that was the criteria with more information. That you get to again, the websites that show you, and I will walk through that a little bit. But then, so the daunting 73 pages really kind of stops at page 8 with the detailed information you need to do. And so I'd say if somebody is interested in applying just to the North Central, read up to page 8 and then follow the link to the North Central portion of this coming in at, I think we have 8 pages related to the North Central. This outlines what we have available. We got about $850,000 They're not to exceed $425,000. We're expecting 2 or 3, depending on where they come in with budgets. There's my contact information. Again, welcome questions about it. We review the university consortium leads. We don't require that the leads from each university be included on a proposal, but we do suggest that it's worthwhile contacting them. These people are most familiar with what we're trying to do and trying to set up, so at least picking their brain can lead to a more successful proposal, and they're listed, therefore, on the solicitation. To give some background, again, asking that we have that management framework that I was speaking of earlier explicitly described in the proposal. We are trying to have this integrated across our foundational science areas. The link is provided there, and the revamp concept, which is highlighted there, that will kind of follow this approach and help us kind of build that science delivery through the proposal. We clearly want to connect the stakeholders. The primary stakeholders for the North Central are these 4 landscape conservation cooperatives. Their websites provide a wealth of information about what they're after, as well as some context here. If you're aware of these people or you want to contact them, that would be welcome to try to understand if your idea is suitable or appropriate for the type of management-focused issues they're concerned about as well. Here's a replicate of what I showed on the slide of some examples. Here's the weighting of our review criteria, and kind of some one last thing maybe to note that's unique to the CSC is that, that in this solicitation or in this thing, we do provide a link to successful proposals. I think the 3 we received and funded that were selected last time are strong examples of what we were after. The solicitation has not changed all that much, so it's probably worth looking at those as good examples of what we're looking at. Again, just a mention of that Colorado State University overhead. It's kind of described there. If you forget it, 8% or 31, so just multiply 25 times 31, and that's kind of what you have to add if the money is going to any university consortium outside of the CSU. USCS Center's money just gets to them through a change of allocation. They don't have to concern themselves with that. So that's walking through the PDF of the funding opportunity. I'll pause here if there's any questions before I go on to kind of the website and a bit of navigation through that.
Hey, Jeff, this is Tabitha. I had a quick question.
Sure.
So I think there's a line in there that says that this isn't for any data collection. Is that if it's in the first sort of 3 quadrants of that management framework? In other words, not in the monitoring component?
Well, I think this is a bit of a gray area, and the question has come up. So I'm glad you asked it. It's a good question. The idea would be, I don't think the National Climate Change Wildlife Science Center is looking to use this to put up 10 new stream gauges, kind of period, right? As far as like monitoring networks or spending a lot on that. I think that if it can be tied, if data collection is, I think there's got to be some data collection. I mean, we do data management plans. There's new data that are part of it. So, I think it's more like it's asking to not have any kind of operational major data collection as part of what's being proposed. It's more along the lines of, I think, data collected to support what's being proposed can make sense. So that's a bit of an ambiguous answer, but it's not a strict sense of no data can be collected. It's just that the primary purpose shouldn't be kind of a monitoring network, say. Perhaps another example would be somebody's considering a monitoring network, and that's a big decision. This could bring in climate and climate research and the impacts and adaptation components to climate for that monitoring network to guide it, and maybe there's a pilot deployment or 2 that would help answer some questions or help with that guidance. That would be allowed. So it's just really trying to get away from funding saying, well, we think stream gauges are important, we're going to put up 10 of them, and that would be the proposal. That would sort of be pretty much non-responsive. But if there's a clear kind of climate connection to a management framework, and we haven't ever been able to kind of monitor how well it's working, so we're going to do some surveys, or we're going to have some new climate information brought into the picture to help with that, that would be acceptable. It's not necessarily a hard and fast rule. I don't know if that answers questions or if there's any clarification that's still needed.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Any other questions before I move on to just navigating through this, which is not too bad, but with any website, there's a couple of links and things that are not always exactly clear.
I have one quick question, Jeff. This is Ashley Valentine from University of Montana. And we've been working pretty closely with the Great Northern LCC and trying to think about this opportunity to develop further projects. And the Great Northern LCC spans a massive area that encompasses many different climate domains. And we're currently thinking about proposing a project that works in the Glacier National Park area, which could be associated with the Pacific Northwest or the northern central region. Would that pose any obstacles to getting this funded?
No, and it's a good good question, and I will touch on it a little bit later as far as there is opportunity and encouragement across CSC work. I think I highlighted something here on the review criteria. Give me one moment. I think it's maybe up in the So this is from the preliminary material in the PDF file, where they up to the kind of national and general guidance is a potential for cross-CSC collaboration. I think this is important to realize. This is has a few different dimensions, considerations. It could be that you're building on work that was done in another climate science center, and now you're applying it to a new region. It could be work that's being done that now could generalize and be extended to other CSCs. Or it could be work that extends the boundaries and in a spatial sense goes beyond one CSC. So all of those are possibilities for this cross-CSC collaboration. So building on previous work, extending and generalizing your work, or spatially being across CSCs. So let me get back to this when I get to a point in the request for proposal manager where you can specify that you're applying, or the work would be maybe relevant to more than one CSC. With the additional consideration that there is the National Climate Change Wildlife Center call, and that is specific to drought, but is looking for stuff that spans more than one CSC. So let me see if there's any more questions, but stay tuned. I will touch a little bit more on the cross-CSC stuff as we navigate into the website.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions? Sure. Any other questions on kind of the overview and what we're after? Okay, so as I mentioned, this link will give you to the PDF file. If you go here then and click on any one of the particular, and I'll go to North Central, you see the funding opportunity listed. A lot of this stuff is replicated. This is the same PDF file down there at the bottom. So there's a little bit of redundancy, but this is the kind of some links that give you to the submission portal. But first thing you need to do is register. If you go to this page, I'm already registered, so it's a little hard to demo. Let me try to back up to what you see. So when you go to that registration page, it will either say, if you're a USGS person or already registered, log in, or you can start it. You can do a new registration, and you just type in an email, and it gives you this information. So this would be non-USGS people would have to go here. Let me actually just go to different. I want to show you what that looks like. Unfortunately, since I'm already logged in, it's kind of stopping me from doing that. So this, all I did was change from Chrome to Safari to start fresh to what you would see. So if you click on North Central, you'll get this information to register. And I think that if I hit this, I will see. Okay, so you'll get this page. And this is USGS employees would go here. And if you submitted a proposal last year or last time around or somehow have a My USGS account, if you type your email in here, it's going to tell you you already have an account. Please log in. If you don't have a My USGS account, not a DOI person, then you go here, and once you hit submit, you'll get to, once you type in an email, it gives you this field where it just asks you to write the title of your proposal. All of this can be edited, so you don't have to worry too much about getting it right the first time. You hit submit, you'll get an auto-generated email that will then link you to a My USGS page that will look something like this. This will kind of say, and all these fields will be filled in with your information and title, and that you'll notice I didn't fill any of this out, but giving you information on this. So, and then when it comes time to actually submit the proposal, you add your statement of interest, and then you hit submit. And I think it will give you a kind of an option to say you are about to hit this, and you can't retract it, but make sure you want to, and then submit it. But if something happens and you submit something and you're like, oh, shoot, I didn't mean to do that, just call me or kind of contact the people that are listed, I think, on this website. For there's Haley Schweitzer. You can say, I did this wrong. Can you help me fix it? So nothing's absolutely irreversible, but between me and Haley, we should be able to help you resolve any questions or problems you have. From this, where was I? Navigation. Here's where, for registering a form, and again, this can be edited, you want to say if it's a tribal project, is a question we're asking for, the project summary, a general product summary, public summary. Rough, for the statement of interest, it's just rough budget numbers broken down by year for the 3 years. This is where the cross-CSC issue comes in, where you specify that, yes, I'm interested in doing this, submitting this to the cross-CSC. So for the question, Ashley was asking, maybe there's a Northwest Climate Science Center as well, is, maybe perhaps relevant. So you would hit that, and you see when you do click highlight that box, you can then specify which other CSC you're applying to, and if you're really doing something thematic, you could click more than one. The issue being that you have to look at their solicitation and make sure your proposal matches what they want to do as well. So it's a little bit of a challenge, I think, to the investigator that you're essentially writing 2 proposals. Obviously, there can be some overlap or reuse of material. But if you are thinking of something, you are checking this box and looking to apply to another climate science center, you have to read their solicitation. That is going back to this information. So you go to the, and actually Northwest isn't advertising this year, so it's kind of a bad example that they don't have any funds. Funds are spent to do this, but maybe South or Alaska, and you would have to read kind of their specific information they're looking for and submit 2 proposals, one to them and one to the North Central. And you would be considered in both pools. I will note with the caveat that if you are a North Central Climate Science Center University Consortium member and you're submitting to, say, Alaska, if you don't have a proposal submitted to North Central as well that's kind of affiliated with the Alaska proposal, they would consider that non-responsive. That is, I'm not going to accept a proposal from the University of Alaska Fairbanks unless they've already submitted a proposal, kind of a sister proposal to the Alaska CSC. In that we need to kind of we're trying to keep the consortium work in the region, and it's sort of unfair to the North Central Consortium if somebody from Alaska comes in and wants to work in here without actually working to work in Alaska as well and building off of that climate science center. So that's just a question that came up in the last round. people in the North Central and probably a couple hundred managed to navigate the system last year when we set it up. So one thing I will mention to the USGS people that may be on the line is that if you go here and you log into your USGS account, even though you're kind of coming from this solicitation page, you land at the home My USGS page, which is kind of confusing. What I suggest doing is you just close this window and then go back to, once you hit the login again, or once you hit back to register, I think it then defaults you to, you're kind of in the request for proposal manager, the RFP manager, but you kind of bounce into this as the first place. Probably clear as mud, but I'm sure people can navigate through it. It's not uncommon type of thing. Okay, so that was all I had. I can stop now for questions, answers on any of this, kind of what we're after, the general solicitation or the technical request for proposal manager. If anyone has any comments or questions.
Hi, Jeff. This is Chris. And I have a question about, first, what do you suggest about how to learn about last year's proposals and their output, or, sorry, the output from the foundational teams that could be available and could be used in our proposal for this year?
Right. Let me zoom in a little bit again. Going to the website, and it's listed in the solicitation. So this is kind of highlighted and I think described. Back up a little bit. So wait a minute. Sorry. Anyway, this revamped climate.solicitate.edu is linked on the, it's listed in the proposal. Hello, am I on hold, or can people hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you and the music.
Well, now we got something to go with that clicking. It's like a rhythmic thing. Again, if anyone could mute, that would be possibly help with this. Under the revamp page, you will see the funded project. I would go there to get the proposals. The foundational science areas. There's actually only one.
Is somebody on 2 calls? Maybe somebody didn't hang up on another call?
I don't know. It does sound like kind of background music while you're waiting for another call to come in. Well, let me just try to talk over it, Chris. The data we have from the foundational science areas primarily relates to just the temperature data that the University of Montana has provided, the gridded temperature data. But I would encourage you to write the foundational team leads. So on the foundational science areas, you'll get climate, they're listed here, climate impact and adaptation, and each link will provide you the details of that page. Thank you for, I don't know, somebody did something, hopefully. Gives you Joe Barsugli's name, and you can contact him. If you need contact information, you can write me. But as I was saying, in case people missed it, was the main data product has been a gridded temperature data set that's come out of University of Montana with the Topo WebEx data. I believe that that's listed in ScienceBase as well as on the GeoData portal. But if people are interested in that gridded temperature data, they're still working on providing the gridded precipitation and evapotranspiration that is not yet available. There are kind of, if you go to the foundational science areas you can find the implementation plan and the work plan that describe what they're doing, which is worthwhile looking at perhaps. But as far as usable products, the main product I can think of would be the gridded temperature data. Again, that's sort of still waiting for the precip and the ET product, and that should be available. And you could contact Steve Running as the PI on that at University of at Montana State University. No, I'm sorry, at University of Montana. He'd be worth contacting that. That's described in those the implementation plan for 2013. The work plan there, what that's going to be.
Okay.
Did that answer the question, Chris?
Yeah, that answers it quite a bit. And then that also leads into my second question, which is the proposal we're going to put in is going to involve land use decisions and what across the Dakotas in particular are the economic and climate factors that tend to drive especially marginal productive land in one direction or the other. So I'm wanting to know if there are any land use decision models or any of those sorts of tools within the adaptation foundational work or within the Climate Science Center itself that we want to link.
None within the North Central itself in particular. There is some work that's being done in the USGS. Ben Slater, who's with the Menlo Park USGS Center, is doing some land cover projections, kind of given sort of economics and demographics. There's also the land fire, or I'm sorry, was land fire kind of transition to land carbon program that's done some land cover work. Not that you're restricted to those, it's just more for your information that might be worth contemplating. Again, it's Ben Slater at Menlo Park and the land carbon program. Might have some resources or might have some data that could be considered within that.
Yep, that's exactly what I was looking for. Thanks.
Okay.
Hey, Jeff, this is Tabitha again. What about internationally in terms of crossing the Canadian borders? Of course, the GNLCC covers a huge area. How is that dealt with?
I think that if the ecological or management issue dictates kind of considering north of the U.S. border, that's perfectly acceptable. I think that we kind of, I try to generally say that the boundary is really where we're looking to get stakeholders and management decisions, but the domain of study is anything that would relate to that. I think a good example is just, if somebody's managing migratory birds in the Dakotas, there's certainly relevant information from Central America, perhaps, or at least the flyway, whatever the flyway might be, and into Canada. So, if it was a Canadian parks decision that was the main focus of the proposal, probably not so much. If it was, but more of the ecology or the climate extends into that area, that would be perfectly acceptable and, as maybe essential, depending on what the question is. That said, I mean, if there's some sort of like kind of crown of the continent type of thing, or where it's multiple agencies are coming together, that's perfectly fine too, as long as there is at least kind of a management issue that is kind of within the states or the domain of the North Central and relevant to the LCCs. And for better or worse, that you do have it's best to have a U.S. stakeholder interest, land management interest in that.
Okay, thanks.
Good. All right. Well, I certainly appreciate the interest. Probably all that's standing between people and enjoying a weekend, calling on a Friday. again, this was the last of 2 question-answer sessions, but anyone on the call, feel free to contact me. We will have postings of the recorded versions of these 2 sessions. If you go to the ways to get involved and meetings and events now, you'll see, I don't think we've quite got the posting of Tuesdays, but it should be on there. So if you go to a given day in our calendar, on the side here, it's kind of slow, you'll find a link to this, and you will see, I guess it is posted. So the video from Tuesday's already there. So others could join that way if they want to, or you can kind of learn that way. Or feel free to call or write to me. I'm happy to answer questions. My mantra is we're looking for winning proposals, so I'm happy to take questions if people have them, and kind of let you know what we're after. So I'll open up one more time if anybody has questions before we sign off. All right. Hearing none, trying to give people enough time to unmute if they were trying to ask a question. I guess we can sign off. And again, I appreciate the interest. Quite a few people here on the call, and it's great to hear. And look forward to getting some good statement of interest and some interesting work that could be done under this opportunity. We'll sign off. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you.